Tonight we're going to honor Israel. I'm Mark Friedman. I'm the interim CEO of the Jewish Federation of Greater Nashville, and I want to welcome you all here this evening. Say Erev Tov to all of you. Thank you for registering and coming to hear our Consul General this evening. We're delighted that you're here. We really appreciate it. I just really am here to do two things. One is to tell you the ground rules for this evening, and then to introduce our Shlicha Ziv, who will introduce our guest speaker, and we'll have an opportunity to hear a very important update on what's going on in Israel and in the world. And if you've been following the news today, we see history moving right under our feet. And it's always important to have a lens, a prism, a way to frame all of this, and our Consul General will help us this evening. Now, in that context, just a couple of ground rules. This is a private briefing. There is no media here. We need to respect this particular way in which we'll conduct this event this evening. So if you've got a cell phone, park it in your pocket or wherever a convenient place is. Joel, thank you. Please do not stream this event or record it or blast it out on social media. We are recording the event, and after the Consul General in her office has had a chance to review it, we will be releasing portions of it based on their permission for us to do so. This is very important because we want to share really off-the-record briefing with you that is important knowledge for you and people that you want to have conversations with, but not out in the public square. Last but not least, please be respectful of the speaker, and when you ask questions, please make it a question. Gettysburg Address is okay, but you know, the Constitution is not okay. Short questions are fine. And also, please, again, respect the forum in which we're in. No disruptions. If anybody is disruptive, as they say in Yiddish, we're going to knock you out of here on your keister. Okay, everybody knows what that is, right? So with that being said, I want to welcome our wonderful Shlicha to introduce our guest speaker. Ziv Shemesh, please come up. You look great this evening.
Good evening. My name is Ziv Shemesh. I have been the new Shlicha for the past 5 months. I'm going to a little bit introduce myself, talk about a program that is relevant to Israel, and then introduce Anat. I was 5 years a combat fitness officer before I came, and during the war I was in a rehab center for traumatic soldiers. After I finished the service, I joined Birthright Israel while I applied for this position, and for the last 5 months I've been in this role. And we're going to talk about the ceasefire in Israel, which is the opportunity to rebuild the country and the nation. And we as a community have the opportunity to help in that long process by coming to volunteer in Israel for 8 days in June. There is a flyer outside between the dates of 8th till the 16th. It's open to the ages of 18 till 40. So if one of you is between those ages or knows somebody in those ages, it's highly subsidized, and you can connect with my email to get more information and to come to volunteer with us. And now I'm going to present Anat. Anat Sultan-Dadon assumed her role as the Consul General of Israel to the southeastern United States in 2019. Sultan-Dadon joined the Israeli Diplomatic Corps in 2004 and has held various positions at the embassies of Israel in Cameroon, Germany, the Netherlands, and Australia, as well as positions in Eurasia and the Asia-Pacific divisions at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Jerusalem. She earned a BA in Psychology and Educational from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and a master's degree in Criminology with high honors at the same institution. In her current role in Atlanta, the Consul General is responsible for advancing the bilateral relations between Israel and 7 southeastern states: Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Sultan-Dadon is married to Yaron, and they are the proud parents of 3 girls. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome once again to Nashville, Tennessee. Always a pleasure to be here, to be with this community. We've had a very interesting brief visit today that will continue tomorrow. Happy to share about that as well later on. But I'll start with the fact that today was a very important day, and I don't know if any of you, some of you may have had the opportunity to watch the press conference that just recently ended with President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. And it provides much encouragement for Israel. Not only because this war has been going on for far too long, but also because at the end of this war, and there will be an end to this war, we do not want to revert back to more of the same. And I think that in that, we welcome an approach from the United States that is committed to ensuring that we will not go back to more of the same. We have, for the past 2 weeks now, we have been overwhelmed with different emotions. On the one hand, we are overjoyed and relieved to finally see our brothers and sisters starting to return home. It's important to remember that we still have 79 hostages in Gaza. They are starting to return home, and we are relieved and overjoyed, really, to see the images that we are seeing. But at the same time, we are not only filled with anguish for all those that we have lost, those that are still there, but also with much frustration and anger that this has gone on for so long. Because the war should not have gone on for so long, and the hostages should not still be in Gaza. And had the international community spoken with a clear voice since day one, demanding of Hamas to lay down their weapons and release the hostages, we would have been in a very, very different scenario. One which would have saved so many innocent lives on both sides, would have spared so much suffering. What we saw instead was criticism of Israel. Israel, which was acting to defend its country and people, which is the responsibility of any sovereign nation. And that criticism told Hamas, you're on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing. It is serving the purpose that you are after. So the supposed care for the Palestinian people, in fact, only brought more damage, more suffering, more pain, more loss of life to the Palestinians and to Israel. And so I think that every Israeli watching the very recent developments, watching even this press conference, is encouraged. Because yes, we seek a better future for Israel. We have sought peace since day one, since day zero. Our Declaration of Independence clearly states that our hand is extended in peace to all our neighbors. That is what we want to see. But we still face those who refuse to accept our existence, and we still face too many voices in the international community that are encouraging the delusion that there will one day be a Palestinian state that will replace the state of Israel. We know that that will not happen. But it is time not only to see courageous Palestinian leadership tell the Palestinian people the truth, it is time to see the international community start saying the truth instead of feeding this delusion. And I hope that we are on a different path now, because the United States plays an incredibly important role in the future that we will see in our region for Israel's benefit, but really for all our benefit, not just the Jewish people, for every single member of the free world, because what we are fighting, what we are facing, this radical Islamist ideology is a threat to the entire free world. I think I'll stop here, and I would welcome any questions, anything that you would like to discuss. Yes, please.
I saw in the news media at one point that there are Israelis who are, of course, delighted that people are coming home, but they're also frustrated because of some of the horrendous people that are being let out of prison. I know that there's not much choice, but can you at least address that?
Absolutely. We are paying a very, very heavy and painful price for the release of the hostages. This deal means that we see our hostages gradually return, but we are releasing hundreds of convicted terrorists with blood on their hands who are not only responsible for the slaughter of Israelis, but we know that that is the path that they wish to continue to pursue. It is a very, very high price to pay. We are paying that price because of the value that we place on life. And however difficult it may be, I think that when we see the celebration of life in Israel, when we see the celebration of seeing our brothers and sisters return from captivity, in stark contrast to the glorification of terror and murder, seeing these terrorists celebrated in Ramallah, in Gaza, the glorification of murder, that is not who we are. That is never who we will be. And as painful as this deal is, our choice has to be the choice of life for our brothers and sisters. And that is the very, very difficult and heavy price that we are paying, but I don't see any other option, really, for the state of Israel to make a different decision. These are our brothers and sisters, and we have the responsibility to bring them home. Yes.
I'm going to ask what's going to sound like a very provocative question. The reason why Hamas was able to hold and trade for the hostages is because the Israelis let convicted murderers live. Isn't there a possibility that if in the future if Israel was to execute those who committed terror against the United States, you wouldn't have anybody to release. Yeah, I'm sorry, I said the United States against Israel, obviously.
We have in our history almost never used capital punishment. Yes. We're familiar with the case of Eichmann, but that too goes to who we are. Who we are is a military that, when captured alive, terrorists on October 7th who were injured brought them to Israeli medical facilities to receive medical treatment. Not because of who they are, because of who we are. And I would never wish for us to change. That is who Israel is. That is who the Jewish people are. The sanctity of life is so high for us that we go to great lengths in order to uphold that. Again, not based on who we face, based on who we are. And yes, we would be in a position, in a different position, were we to execute every terrorist. But that is not who Israel is. I'm sorry, I'll look to the other direction because I've been taking from this region. Yes. I am sure there are, but they cannot voice their voices because, unfortunately, in Gaza has been for almost 2 decades under the rule of an oppressive terror regime that literally throws its political opponents off of rooftops. There is no room for moderation to grow. But it's not only in Gaza. The Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria, in the West Bank, continues still to glorify death, murder, terror, has yet to condemn the October 7th attack, and is a part of continuing to indoctrinate the future generation, Palestinian children, who are being taught in schools, in their school books, by their teachers. They're being taught hatred. They're being taught to hate and destroy their neighbor rather than being taught to build their future. Are there moderates? I am sure there are. But they have to be allowed and given the room and the space to grow. And I think that the international community has an important role to play in that regard, because it is the international community that has for years been funding the Palestinians. For years they have been funding UNRWA. They have been funding the hatred that is being taught to Palestinian children. They have been funding the same leaders that have taken billions of dollars of international aid money They've been lining their own pockets. Palestinian leaders are billionaires. And they've been investing in terror infrastructure, in weapons, rather than investing in building a better future for their people. Where was the international community to hold them accountable? Where is the international community to hold them accountable? Because if the international community does not demand better leadership for the sake of the Palestinians that it claims to care about, then we will not see a different kind of leadership. We will not see the moderate leadership that the Palestinian people deserve. I am sure that there are Palestinians who want to see a better future for their children. If that same international community that claims to care about the Palestinians, if they would only help pave the way for such moderates to be able to have a chance, to have a say, we would be in a very, very different situation. And I hope that there will be a way forward that finally holds Palestinian leaders accountable. Because for decades, they have perpetuated this delusion that they will one day establish a Palestinian state to replace the state of Israel. It's time to acknowledge that this is a delusion.
Based on what you're saying, talking about Israel, not the international community, is the goal of the government of Israel a one-state, two-state, or three-state solution, as our president is talking about? What is the goal of the state of Israel?
In 1947, when the United Nations presented the partition plan, the Jewish population in the land of Israel accepted. Not because they did not think that the Jewish people had a claim to the entire land of Israel, to Judea and Samaria, to our ancestral homeland, but because they recognized reality on the ground, that there was an Arab population on the ground that sought self-determination. Had that Arab population and the Arab world accepted the partition resolution, there would have been a Palestinian state already back then. And since then, there have been multiple offers on the table, brokered by the United States, accepted by right-wing and left-wing Israeli leadership, already pen in hand at the negotiating table, ready to sign an agreement that would grant self-determination to the Palestinian people. Palestinian leaders have turned down every possibility for them to achieve self-determination for their people because it meant accepting that that self-determination would be realized alongside the state of Israel. Is self-determination for the Palestinian people possible? It is a choice that they will have to make. Israel has proven time and again that we are willing to live in peace alongside anyone who chooses to live in peace alongside the state of Israel. That question should not be pointed or directed at Israel. That question should be directed at the Palestinians and at the Arab world. Does the Arab world and do the Palestinians wish to perpetuate their refugee status, or do they want to move on? They can move on. They've been offered to move on. They can achieve self-determination. But it cannot go hand in hand with continuing to claim that they are refugees who are waiting to return to what is now the state of Israel. That will not happen. When my parents' families immigrated, my father's family from Egypt, my mother's family from Iran, they did not seek to be called refugees. They did not see themselves as refugees. They sought to build a life for themselves. That is what the Palestinians can do. And it's a question that should be presented to them, not to Israel. Israel has been willing and ready to live in peace alongside them. I hope that that is a future that we will see.
Well, following up on that real quick, they've had several opportunities to have a chance at self-determination and have turned to Hamas or turned to PA again or whomever. So realistically, is that even a real possibility for you as a nation need to turn around and say, hey, that's not realistic because they don't actually want it. Because there's a lot to be gained from refugee status in the buildings that are
Under Hamas, it is not realistic. We have nothing to negotiate with Hamas. Hamas does not have a political agenda. The agenda is genocidal, stated loud and clear. It's in their charter. Their charter clearly states that their goal is the destruction of Israel. There is nothing to be negotiated. Will there be a solution under Hamas? Of course not. Can there be potentially a solution with the Palestinians? Yes. It will take courageous leadership. Peace is a choice to be made, and it takes courageous leadership. We saw that kind of courageous leadership when in 1979, then Egyptian President Anwar Sadat made the very courageous choice. He had to stand alone in front of the entire Arab world, making a choice, a bold choice that he knew was the right choice for his country and his people. And we know that he paid with his life for that choice that he made. But he gave Egypt and the Egyptians a future without continuous war with Israel. That's the kind of leadership that we will have to see in order to see a different kind of future for the Palestinians.
So I have certainly noticed over the years in Palestinian areas in the media seeing the swastika be used as a symbol. And I have seen Western media outlets make excuses for it and try to suggest that every time in Palestinian areas that they are flying a swastika, that they're actually trying to accuse the Jews of being Nazis, when in fact I think there are famous photographs that connect the Grand Mufti to Hitler back as far as World War II. And we know even more recently we see people throw Hitler salutes. So I feel like that sort of dispels the question as to what they're using that symbolism for. And so I'm wondering, as we are trading off hostages and of course the goal of bringing everyone home, is there a greater plan for the denazification of Palestine that Israel will have a part in, or are we relying more on the Western world to push that?
We know that part of the day after and creating a different future for Israel, for the Palestinians, will have to include also a de-radicalization of Palestinian society. That is a possibility. It is just like peace is a choice to be made. Changing mindsets is something that other leaders in our region have chosen to do. The Abraham Accords, signed 4 years ago, were preceded by the signatory countries, by the United Arab Emirates, by Bahrain, long before signing the accords, examining what are they teaching in their schools, what are they teaching in their school books, what are they conveying in their media, and making revisions in order to start educating their people towards the normalization of relations, towards the tolerance. That is something that can be done with Palestinian society as well. They have been indoctrinated for years, but it does not mean that one cannot start educating differently. It is not a given and a necessary reality that Palestinian children at the age of 3, 4, 5 years old go to, instead of going to camp to have a normal childhood and to learn positive things about the world, instead of that they're going to terror camps. They're being taught how to attack, how to hold weapons, how to... Can things be done differently? Absolutely. Can societies be de-radicalized? Absolutely. But again, a choice to be made. And I think that those who are funding what is being taught by the Palestinians should start using their voice, should start holding accountable, and should start looking at what it is that they are actually funding. It's time for the world to wake up.
Mary Allback came home with observing soldier, and she said, make no mistake, there are 2 million terrorists in Palestine, meaning she was with children who wanted to spit on her. I've seen videos of kids saying they want to stab Jews. So I was going to ask a similar question, but tagging on to that, how do we fight the radicalism in the USA? I mean, it's crazy how many people, even like family members of mine, when they find out that we do the walk Sunday, they say, and my husband will say, well, some hostages got released, and then somebody said, well, what about the Palestinian hostages? And I just fumed because they're terrorists that are in prison for killing and rape and murder. And so I think Hamas has done a job on social media to the Western world, to the United States, making some people, I think, a small amount, completely back Hamas, back October 7th. Like, it's been crazy what we've been seeing. So what can we do? Because you can't fight these people. You just have to walk away. I mean,
Education is key, not only for the Palestinians.
yeah.
Education is key everywhere, including in the United States. And just like there should be accountability in terms of what are Palestinian children being taught, there should be accountability here in the United States as well. There should be accountability everywhere. There should be accountability when academic institutions allow for their institutions to become platforms for preaching hate. There should be accountability when these administrations allow not only for hate speech, but for bullying and attacks on Israeli and Jewish students and faculty. And I know that there's a lot of discourse in the United States, and there should be, about what is going on college campuses, university campuses. But it does not start there. This past year, including here in the South, Jewish and Israeli children have been targeted, bullied, and attacked starting in kindergarten, primary schools, middle schools, high schools. What is being taught in the education system? How are teachers being trained? The hatred and the climate that surrounds us all, in which too many perceive anti-Semitism to be legitimate, that has to change. Not only for our benefit, for Israel or for the Jewish community, for the sake of America, American society, the future of America. What does the future of America look like if its future leaders are attending academic institutions in which they are learning that hate is condoned? The fact that we saw Iranian leaders, Iran, the largest terror sponsor in the world, Iranian leaders, Hamas leaders, and Hezbollah leaders praise American demonstrators. This is something that every American should be losing sleep over. Because this is the younger generation here in America. What do they stand for? And what will they stand for if they are not taught better? Education is crucial not only when it comes to the Palestinians. When we are seeing what is going on globally, the rampant anti-Semitism all around us, it begs a different kind of education. It is not enough when we just marked International Holocaust Remembrance Day on January 27th for so many global leaders to say never again. What does that mean? What does that mean when so much of what we saw preceding the Holocaust is now becoming once again? Combating hatred and anti-Semitism requires an active stand. It's not enough to sit and say never again or pray in your heart. It is not enough. There is a majority out there that knows better. And the majority that knows better is not using its voice and is not drowning out the voices of hatred, which are a minority. But they are being allowed the center stage. Why? A lot can be done. And I think, and I want to commend you, because I think that people who stand up for what is right and use their voice are what will make the difference. And we need to demand that of everyone. Again, it's not just about us. It's not just about the Jews. It's about all of us. We all have a responsibility to fight this.
I think that what you're saying is profound moral confusion within the world. But when I think about America and Europe and Japan after World War II, the way that Japan and Europe and Germany were rehabilitated was a complete and utter undeniable victory in which emperors surrendered, people gave away their arms. It was a complete humiliation of the SS, the warring class. In my mind, I agree with everything you're saying, but I think that the American people, 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 the Ameri But how do you get to that point? How can you have to get rid of Hamas completely, irrevocably? And, well, I understand that it's much more difficult than, but what is the plan? How are we going to de-Hamas, get rid of Hamas before you denouncify? How does that happen? Or more importantly, can it happen?
Hamas is an ideology. Hamas is Islamic Jihad, is Hezbollah, is the Houthis, is the Ayatollahs. It is a radical Islamist ideology. We can't eliminate every single person who ascribes to that ideology. This is why we need to, yes, remove them from power, but we need to also start educating, because this radical Islamist ideology stands against everything that we all believe in. We can't allow for the future of Gaza to be ruled by Hamas, but we all will have to see how the Palestinians are educated differently.
Do you think that can happen?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a choice that has to be made. But if one is busy pointing the finger at Israel, rather than dealing with the core issue that does need to be addressed, then no, we won't see a different path. I hope that we will be on a different path now.
Do you think that Israel will be able to get rid of Hamas completely?
We have been fighting towards that end, but it is not just about Israel, and I hope that we will be on that path. Okay, well, so you go and then the lady behind.
Okay, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm a former talk show host on KBC Radio in Los Angeles. I know what it's like to be a lightning rod for anti-Semitism. My colleague was Dennis Prager, whom some of you may know. Between the two of us, there was a lot of action. What I would say to the gentleman over there is, if somebody asks you what the reality is amongst the Palestinians, you can express it in one sentence. The people with power don't want peace, and those who want peace don't have the power. And that's a tragedy. But that is true. Also, you mentioned 1947. I've learned from a woman named Anat Sultan-Dadon. I don't know if you know who she is.
Of course.
She's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
As is Gadi Taub, as is Dan Shifton, as is Israel Undiplomatic. My whole diet now is podcasts. But I learned in 1947 that Ernst Bevin, who was the last foreign secretary of the British Mandate and no friend of the Jews, said this is an irreconcilable conflict for one reason. The Jews' highest priority is to have their own state. The Palestinians' highest priority is for the Jews to not have their own state. And we have been laboring under the Western assumption we're guilty of a kind of a cultural chauvinism. That, of course, what we want, anybody would want. I guess my question for you, Anat, is this. I don't know what to hope for anymore. I used to live in Israel. I had Palestinian friends. The two-state solution was, but I no longer believe that that's in their hearts what they want. When it comes to American students, I had an interesting interaction recently, and then I'll pause. A woman called me. I get a lot of calls from people who are listeners of mine from the radio. And she said, I'm coming to hate all Jews. I just want to empower everybody against these settler colonialists. And I said, I'll tell you what. I will sponsor your plane trip and 1 year of living expenses in Iran. I'll pay for it. And if you don't want Iran, Kabul, Afghanistan is also a plane ticket that I will buy for you. One condition, female, and you've got to stay a year. I've started to make the offer a little bit more publicly. So far, no takers. I think part of the problem is Western ignorance. It's not just that the Palestinians need to re-educate themselves. It's number one, we need to stop apologizing for who we are. If I were dying in 5 seconds and I had 2 words left, it would be stop apologizing. But also, most Westerners, especially academics, either don't know or are willingly misleading their students what it would really mean for that kind of Islamist culture to take over. The Europeans are beginning to catch on. And I think that we have got a massive educational task in front of us. The Palestinians, yes, but of ourselves. I just guess I'm asking you, what do you hope for now? 2 states, 1 state, for the Palestinians to change their minds? Donald Trump wants to take it over and build Trump Tower.
Our most immediate hope is to see all 79 hostages home. That is our most immediate and most important priority. What do we hope? I wouldn't say it's a hope for us. We have the necessity to know that whether we are in southern Israel or in northern Israel or in the middle of Israel, we can tuck our children into bed at night knowing that they are safe from the threat of rockets or from the threat of a terrorist coming into our home to slaughter them. That is what we need to ensure. Beyond that, we can move on to seeing how we can play a role in a better future for our region. We have a very long memory, a memory that extends far beyond our 77 years of existence as the modern state of Israel. And we know that our enemies of the past are no longer here. And we know that we will overcome these enemies as well. And we will continue to strive not only for a better future for ourselves, but for all those around us. And I think that the Abraham Accords and the many countries standing in line to join the Abraham Accords will create a better future for our region. Yeah.
So my question hinges on the last couple of conversations about education and social media. And when you talk about education, it's come to light with the universities, and this has been, what's been going on in universities is awful. I particularly feel it because I've gone to some of those universities, and I'm seeing this now. But it's come to light that Arab money has funded billions of dollars in the major universities, chairs endowed by major Arab countries who are putting their teachers in, who are teaching anti-Semitism, who are creating some of the issues that we're having on some of the major American campuses, combined with the fact that a lot of the tumult and the student protests are created by organized outside groups that are disseminating this type of information. So the question I have in terms of education and how one goes around educating people, because it's a major challenge, is I've always wondered why Israel, we're supposed to be so smart, we Jews, why we are not launching major campaigns, PR campaigns, to show who we are, all the good things that you've spoken about tonight. mean, obviously, our enemies are doing it, and on social media, it's become so powerful too. What is Israel doing?
Israel has been active, be it on social media, in the media, in this battlefield that is not the one on the ground. We are heavily outnumbered, and frankly, it should not be Israel's sole responsibility. We are fighting for humanity, for life, for freedom. There should be millions fighting this fight. Millions. We are defending ourselves, and we are the ones that have to answer and explain ourselves all the time. No, we also should start demanding of all of those who claim to stand for these same values to start using their voices. And I think that there is also a lot of potential power that exists here in the United States. We have millions of Christian friends, millions who support Israel, millions who pray for Israel. I think that we need to do better also in conveying to them what it is that they can do at this time beyond prayer. Because the prayers are appreciated, but there are many actionable steps that they can take in order to help the fight in the international arena. And I think that that can make a difference.
We're going to take two more questions. I know you're getting tired up there. Two more questions, so you pick them.
Okay, yeah, I'll go in this direction.
One of the main conflicts Israel has is the one that nobody's talking about here, and that's the eternal conflict. I had the chance to go back and forth to Israel, born and raised in Israel. I have a beautiful Hebrew, so I understand what's going on over there. And, I came back from August of 2023 from Israel. I told my wife we're on the verge of a civil war. And we were very close to that. I saw WhatsApp groups separating. I saw people fighting with each other. I'm talking about Jewish people fighting with each other in Israel, hating each other to death because of disagreements on that or this. The hardest questions today in the press media, it was like a blessing to hear President Trump talking. And the toughest questions were by the Israeli media. And I think that the biggest threat to Israel is itself. And if we're not going to be fully united as people in Israel, the rest will just follow. And I think we as Americans, and I think that by the way, I used to live in Jersey before. Tennessee is a loving Israel state. This is a place that loves Israel. The governor loves Israel. People here truly love Israel. I'm not talking just about the Jewish people. And I think that Israel needs to unite first. And to really be, because if you hear commercials in Israel, everybody's saying Biyachad, which is together. But the feeling in Israel is not that way. And really, Trump is truly the biggest friend that Israel will ever have. And if we're going to miss those 4 years to really build something great internally and externally, we're missing the best chance in history. Now, what my question is how you guys, as the official representatives of Israel, are going to contribute to that, because this is a huge battle that Israelis are fighting within themselves, and not just with America.
I think that Israeli society is going through the most significant crisis that we have ever gone through. And we have many conflicting sentiments and opinions. And I think that it would not be in line with our democracy, with who we are, if we all agreed with one another. Our Jewish tradition embraces the ability to disagree with one another. And I think that all of our leaders agree on the fact that we want to see more unity in Israel. Not necessarily, we're not going to turn into a people that agree about everything. But more unity in who we are, I think that this is something that we all yearn to see. I think that at a time when we are bleeding still, it is very, very difficult, because really so many are so vulnerable. They are vulnerable, they are in pain, they are angry, they are frustrated. We are a nation in trauma, and it's not even yet post-trauma. We are still going through it. Almost every single household in Israel is living in an abnormal situation. We all know people who have lost their lives on October 7th, people who have lost their lives in the ensuing war. We all know households that for a year and 4 months now cannot sleep at night for fear of a knock on the door and what that knock will bring. Yes, we need to see unity. I fully agree. I think that we should also be a little bit easier on ourselves. These are incredibly tough times. And despite all of the division, and there is a lot of division, we still continue to fight on the battlefield, shoulder to shoulder, right wing, left wing, Jewish, not Jewish, secular and religious. We have still all of that fighting together despite all of the frustration, because I think that at the core, we are united about the most important essence of our being. We are still committed to the miracle that is the state of Israel, and we are committed to seeing this miracle continue. I join your wish, and I think the wish of almost every Israeli, to see an Israel that is less divided. I hope that when we finally see all of our hostages return, we can also start to heal as a society. I think that as long as we have hostages in Gaza, we cannot truly heal and move on as a society.
I would like to say one thing.
One is going to ask the question.
No. Most of us will be going to Super Bowl parties. Robert Kraft has done an ad that's going to happen during the Super Bowl about hate. And I think we should all watch for that. And we should all tell our friends, especially our non-Jewish friends, to watch for that ad that's all about fighting hate with this blue sport.
And I wouldn't wait for the Super Bowl.
I want to thank our Consul General for not only did you offer important words, you put your beating heart right on the podium and let us see that. And that is the human piece that connects us from the Jewish Federation of Greater Nashville and our commitment to Israel and to all of Israel, all of Klal Yisrael. So thank you all for coming, and let us all share the evening together by saying, Am Yisrael High. One more time. Am Yisrael High. Okay, thank you, everybody.